Hello, everybody, and welcome to Burlington High School's 19th Annual Poetry Out Loud Finals. Yep, you can applaud for that. I am Mrs. Crossman, and before I introduce our judges and our MCs for today, I actually wanted to take a minute and just talk to you a little bit about Nikki Giovanni. Does that name familiar to some of you? So she's a poet who passed away just last week at the age of 81. And I think a lot of you are familiar with Nikki Giovanni, either because you have chosen a poem of hers to work with in the past for Poetry Out Loud, or perhaps from your American literature class, because we study one of her speeches, a speech that she gave to Virginia Tech. And guess what? That speech is actually a poem. And if you remember, those of you who've seen the speech and the video of her delivering it, it's a poem that brought an entire arena of 10,000 people to their feet. So what that poem really represents and why we study it is the power of language to unite and build community. And that, in a nutshell, is the power of poetry. It's why we have participated in Poetry Out Loud for almost 20 years. And you all have done the work, right? It's one of the few times over, in your, as a school that we come together, the entire school community, and all students grades 9 through 12 are involved in this. You all have done this. You have picked a poem that speaks to you. You have worked to understand it. You have written about it. You have memorized it, and you have recited it. And for just a couple weeks out of the year, we're all invested in this process of understanding how poetry reflects the human experience and how it connects us as a community. I want to share one quote from Nikki Giovanni. She said, "I'm glad I understand that while language is a gift, listening is a responsibility," which I think is a pretty cool quote from a poet who understands the power of language, right? She was a very rare thing. She was a best-selling poet, a master of her craft. And what she's talking about here is the power of language, yes, important, but the power of listening, equally important. So we are here today to listen, to connect, to build community, and of course to celebrate our Poetry Out Loud finalists. So let's give them a hand. Okay, if you haven't already done so, please take a moment to silence your devices, right? Put your phones away, your iPads away. We want to be a really good audience, which means that when students are up here reciting, it is silent. I ask that students aren't getting up and leaving the auditorium in the middle of a recitation. You can wait, right? And once students leave the stage, then, of course, applaud and cheer for them, all right? All right, I think we're ready to get going. So, you ready? Here's some poetry. Okay, I would like to introduce our judges, the folks who have kindly given up their time to be here with us today to support our Poetry Out Loud program. First off, we have Mr. Sean Musselman, everyone's favorite science guy. We have Miss Jenna Cantino, our young adult librarian from the Burlington Public Library. Ms. Cantino is a returning judge. She also has given her time to support this program, and we're grateful. Thank you. And I'm really excited to introduce you to Miss Tanya Donnelly. She is, go ahead, clap for her. So Miss Donnelly is a two-time Grammy nominee. She's a singer-songwriter originally from Newport, Rhode Island. She is sort of part of a founding member of some of the most seminal alternative rock bands, including Throwing Muses, The Breeders, and Belly. She's gone on to have a solo career, to raise 2 children, and we are just so excited that she's willing to be here today to support this program and talk to you for a little bit about the influence of poetry in her life as somebody who makes a living as a singer-songwriter who understands the power of language. So, Tanya, thank you.
Hello. First of all, I just want to say that I'm so honored to be invited here, and I'm really looking forward to the readings today. Unlike the readers, I'm not a great memorizer, so I'll be reading from this. I've been a working musician and singer-songwriter for over 40 years, from the time that I was just slightly older than the readers today. I've been in a few bands that were relatively successful at the time, and fortunate enough to continue to be a working musician today. And in large part, my inspiration to continue writing songs over those 40 years has always been, for me, poetry and literature. Good poetry, in particular, has been an immediate, productive, and reliable spark for the writing of lyrics. But it's also moved me in much more broad and practical ways, influencing life choices as well. It has opened my heart and mind, given me strength, and certain poems have shown up at just the right moment when most needed. I'm going to read one now that played a significant role in guiding me to the life that I've lived and continue to live. This poem was published in 1986 and found me at a time when I was questioning my path, my place in the world, my place in family, and my obligations to others. It was a time also when I was experiencing a heavy case of imposter syndrome. I was feeling overwhelmed by and unsure of my decision to pursue music at all. And I was surrounded by artists that I considered far superior to myself at the time. I look back now and understand that this was a fork in my road, unrecognizable to me at the time, but very clear now. And this poem, which is called Wild Geese by Mary Oliver, which I'm sure you will know, spoke to me. You do not have to be good. You do not have to walk on your knees for 100 miles through the desert repenting. You only have to let the soft animal of your body love what it loves. Tell me about despair, yours, and I will tell you mine. Meanwhile, the world goes on. Meanwhile, the sun and the clear pebbles of the rain are moving across the landscapes, over the prairies and the deep trees, the mountains and the rivers. Meanwhile, the wild geese, high in the clean blue air, are heading home again. Whoever you are, no matter how lonely, the world offers itself to your imagination, calls to you like the wild geese, harsh and exciting, over and over announcing your place in the family of things. From the first sentence of that poem, it simultaneously calmed and recharged me. And I returned to it often. Just one poem at the right moment can be that powerful. So, looking forward to hearing the readings, and thank you. Happy holidays and New Year.
All right. Miss Donnelly, thank you. That was lovely. Mary Oliver is a favorite of mine. Period 2, do you remember Mary Oliver? We read some earlier this year, so thank you so much for sharing your thoughts. That was really special. So what we're ready to do now, I'm going to introduce our student MCs, and they will be introducing our finalists for the afternoon. So I'd like to thank Chris Williams and Maya Barkley for helping us out today, and you guys want to come on up.
First up, we have Cassandra Herrera.
My Father Sings to My Embarrassment by Sandra M. Castillo. At Las Villas, a small Carroll City bar with a makeshift stage where he spends too much time drinking, pretending he can learn to play the guitar at 45, become a singer, a musician who writes about que difícil es, to live in Spanish in Miami, a city yet to be translated, in a restaurant where he has taken us for Cuban food, where I sit frozen, unable to make a sound, where mother smiles, all her teeth exposed, squeezes my hand, where May and Mitzi hide under the table, shielding them from shame with the blood-red tablecloth, leaving my mother and me pale-faced, trapped by the spotlight shining in our eyes, making it difficult for us to pretend we do not know the man in the white suit pointing to us. Thank you.
Next up, we've got Eitan Yelovetsky.
Under the Vulture Tree by David Bottoms. We have all seen them circling pastures, have looked up from the mouth of a barn, a pine clearing, the fences of our own backyards, and have stood amazed by the one slow wing beat, the endless dihedral drift. But I had never seen so many, so close, hundreds, every limb of the dead oak, feathered black. And I cut the engine, let the river grab the John boat and pull it toward the tree. The black leaves shined, the pink fruit blossomed, red, ugly as a human heart. Then, as I passed under their dream, I saw for the first time its soft countenance, the raw, fleshy jowls, wrinkled and generous, like the faces of the very old who've grown to empathize with everything. And I drifted away from them, slow, on the pull of the river, reluctant, looking back at their roost, calling them what I'd never called them, what they are, those dwarf transfiguring angels who flock to the side of the poisoned fox, the mud turtle crushed on the shoulder of the road, who pray over the leaf graves of the anonymous lost, with mercy enough to consume us all and give us wings. Thank you.
Next up, we have Brandon Ruiz.
Icebound by Walter Bargan. Sky's gray sheet spreads icy rain. Through the night we heard the branches cracking. Now they bend with the bowed ache of apostrophe. Backs to the window, sitting on the couch. We listen as the radio announces the list of schools closed. An hour earlier, I inched my way along the road, tires spinning toward the ditch. Now I read aloud to my teenage daughter, who tolerates my foolishness, my claim that Lao Tzu traversed a more slippery world. With 2 books on my lap, 1 in my hand, 2 on the floor, I'm surrounded by imperfect translations, a gathering chaos, something mysteriously formed, without beginning, without end, formless and perfect. She responds, "Sure, I knew that. So what?" I persist. That existed before the heavens and the earth, before the universe was born. She's ready to go upstairs and listen to the radio. I ask, what was her face before her parents were born? She answers, "Nothing." I ask it again. She says it again. Where are the angels, knights on humble knees, the psalms of faith, the saints of daylight? She walks out of the room. I'm surrounded by thin books. How pointless to go anywhere on this day, or maybe any other. Then the time comes when there is no other way but to stand on firm ice. Thank you.
Next up, we have Therese Kaczynski.
It Isn't Me by James Lasdon. It isn't me, he'd say, stepping out of a landscape that offered, he'd thought, the backdrop to a plausible existence until he'd entered it. It's just not me, he'd murmur, walking away. It's not quite me, he'd explain, apologetic but firm, leaving some job they'd found him. They'd found him others, he'd go, smiling his smile, putting his best foot forward, till again, he'd find himself reluctantly concluding that this, too, wasn't him. He wanted to get married, make a home, unfold a life among his neighbors' lives, branching and blossoming like a tree. But when it came to it, it isn't me, was all he seemed to learn from all his diligent forays outward, and why it should be so hard for someone not so different from themselves to find what they had found, barely even seeking. What gift he'd not been given, what forlorn charm of his they'd had the luck to lack, puzzled them, though not unduly. They lived inside their lives so fully they couldn't, in the end, believe in him, except as some half-legendary figure, destined or doomed to carry on his back the weight of their own all but weightless stray doubts and discomforts. Only sometimes, alone, in offices or living rooms, they'd hear that phrase again. It isn't me. And wonder, briefly, what they were, and where, and feel the strangeness of being there. Thank you.
Next up, we have Jack Carey.
All right. I'm the People, the Mob by Carl Sandburg. I am the people, the mob, the crowd, the mass. Do you know that all the great work of the world is done through me? I am the working man, the inventor, the maker of the world's food and clothes. I am the audience that witnesses history. The Napoleons come from me, and the Lincolns. They die, and then I send forth more Napoleons and Lincolns. I am the seed ground. I am a prairie that will stand for much plowing. Terrible storms pass over me. I forget. The best of me is sucked out and wasted. I forget. Everything but death comes to me and makes me work and give up what I have. And I forget. Sometimes I growl, shake myself and spatter a few red drops for history to remember. Then I forget. When I, the people, learn to remember, when I, the people, use the lessons of yesterday and no longer forget who robbed me last year, who played me for a fool, then there will be no speaker in all the world say the name the people with any fleck of sneer in his voice or any far-off smile of derision. The mob, the crowd, the mass will arrive then. Thank you.
Next up, we have Skylar Pankey.
It Isn't Me by James Lasden. It isn't me, he'd say, stepping out of a landscape that offered, he thought, the backdrop to a plausible existence, until he entered it. It's just not me, he'd murmur, walking away. It's not quite me, he'd explain, apologetic but firm, leaving some job they'd found him. They found him others. He'd go, smiling his smile, putting his best foot forward, till again he'd find himself reluctantly concluding that this, too, wasn't him. He wanted to get married, make a home, unfold a life among his neighbors' lives, branching and blossoming like a tree. But when it came to it, it isn't me was all he seemed to learn from all his diligent forays outward. And why it should be so hard for someone not so different from themselves to find what they'd found, barely even seeking, what gift he'd not been given, what forlorn charm of his they'd had the luck to lack, puzzled them, though not unduly. They lived inside their lives so fully they couldn't, in the end, believe in him, except as some half-legendary figure destined or doomed to carry on his back the weight of their own all but weightless, stray doubts and discomforts. Only sometimes, alone in offices or living rooms, they'd hear that phrase again, "It isn't me," and wonder briefly what they were and where, and feel the strangeness of being there. Thank you.
Next up, we have Mason Alonji.
Okay. The Rights of Women by Anna Letitia Barbald. Yes, injured woman, rise, assert thy right. Woman, too long degraded, scorned, oppressed. Oh, born to rule impartial laws despite. Resume thy native empire o'er the breast. Go forth arrayed in panoply divine, that angel pureness which admits no stain. Go, bid proud man his boasted rule resign, and kiss the golden scepter of thy reign. Go, gird thyself with grace, collect thy store of bright artillery glancing from afar. Soft, melting tones thy thundering cannons roar. Blushes and fears thy magazine of war. Thy rights are empire. Urge no meaner claim. Felt, not defined, and if debated, lost. Like sacred mysteries which, withheld from fame, shunning discussion, are revered the most. Try all that wit and art suggest to bend of thy imperial foe the stubborn knee. Make treacherous man thy subject, not thy friend. Thou mayst command, but never canst be free. Awe the licentious and restrain the rude. Soften the sullen, clear the cloudy brow. Be more than princes' gifts thy favors sued. She hazards all who will the least allow. But hope not, courted idol of mankind, on this proud eminence, secure to stay, subduing and subdued, thou soon shalt find thy coldness soften and thy pride give way. Then abandon each ambitious thought, conquest or rule thy heart shall feebly move. In nature's school, by her soft maxims taught, that separate rights are lost in mutual love. Thank you.
Last up for round one, we have Aksha Dake.
Edgar Allan Poe is reached at the Baltimore Harbor by the shadows that pursue him, by Fernando Valverde, translated by Carolyn Forche. And the cloud that took the form, when the rest of heaven was blue, of a demon in my view, Edgar Allan Poe. They always followed you. Disdainful dogs, they made you lose your balance. You had to shout blasphemies into shadows, trying to put out the din of their barking. Other times, it was advisable to talk and try to calm them. Whispers could be more convincing and stop them on any corner so as to continue alone. Solitude is a walk through the streets of Baltimore. You could never free yourself. Those shadows were growing. Crows perched on the statues with eyes fixed on the emptiness of a demon who dreams. To you, who were on the edge of a dismal midnight, watching specters of dying embers on the ground. To you, who tasted sorrow, who drank it like an exquisite liqueur, I come close, and I look at you, trying to find you on the other side of the stone, carved by misfortune, the same as happens with beauty. Never again will the silver bells ring. The ships that now arrive at the port of Baltimore are filled with people too frightened to speak. They bring a stone in place of the heart. They do not sense these shadows that wander the streets. These shadows that are neither men nor women nor beasts, perhaps dogs or birds or words in the beaks of the birds or in their jaws. When they pass, they are nothing more than the sea breeze from which they come. There is a silence now, about silence in the shadows. They bite like words in place of the heart. Thank you.
All right. Thank you, finalists. That concludes our round one. And in between round one and round two, there needs to be a little tabulating, calculating happening. All right. Hello, everybody. I think we're ready to continue. So let's get settled. I know there was a little movement. So everyone find your seats, please. Put those devices back away. Get ready to focus for round two of the Poetry Out Loud finals. We ready? I'm going to wait one more minute. We got some people filing in. All right, we ready? Chris and Maya, you're up.
First in the second round, we have Cassandra Herrera.
Sonnet 18, Shall I Compare Thee to a Summer's Day, by William Shakespeare. Shall I compare thee to a summer's day? Thou art more lovely and more temperate. Rough winds do shake the darling buds of May, and summer's lease hath fell too short a date. Sometime too hot the eye of heaven shines, and often is his gold complexion dimmed, and every fair from fair sometime declines, by chance or nature's in a course untrimmed. But thy eternal summer shall not fade, nor lose possession of that fair thou owest, nor shall death brag thou wanderest in a shade. When in eternal lines to time thou growest, so long as men can breathe or eyes can see, so long lives this, and this gives life to thee. Thank you.
We are going to begin, so everyone let's settle down. Quiet, please. Ready? Thank you.
Next up, we have Eitan Yelovetsky.
A Poison Tree by William Blake. I was angry with my friend. I told my wrath did end. I was angry with my foe. I told it not, my wrath did grow. And I watered it in fears, night and morning with my tears. And I sunned it with smiles, and with soft, deceitful wiles. And it grew both day and night, till it bore an apple bright. And my foe beheld it shine, and he knew that it was mine. And into my garden stole, when the night had veiled the pole. In the morning, glad I see my foe outstretched beneath the tree. Thank you.
Next up, we have Brendan Ruiz.
The Moon Now Rises to Her Ultimate Rule by Henry David Thoreau. The moon now rises to her ultimate rule, and the husbandman and the hunter acknowledge her as their mistress. Aster and golden rain in the fields. And and a life everlasting withers not. And the fields are reaped and shorn of their pride, but an inward verdure still crowns them. The thistle scatters its down on the pool, and yellow leaves clothe the river, and naught disturbs the lives of men. But behind the sheave and under sod, there lurks a ripe fruit which has not been gathered by reapers. the true harvest of the year, the boreal fruit. Wait, that bear that it bears forever. With fondness, annually watering and maturing it. But man never severs the stalk which bears this palatable fruit. Thank you.
Next up, we have Therese Kaczynski.
Often rebuked, yet always back returning by Emily Bronte. Often rebuked, yet always back returning to those first feelings that were born with me. Can we start? Sorry. Often rebuked, yet always back returning by Emily Bronte. Often rebuked, yet always back returning to those first feelings that were born with me. In leaving busy dream, Can I have the line? Thank you. In leaving busy chase of wealth and learning for idle dreams of things which cannot be. Today, I will seek not the shadowy region, its unsustaining vastness waxes drear. And visions rising legion after legion bring the unreal world too strangely near. I'll walk, but not in old, heroic traces, and not in paths of high morality, and not among the half-distinguished faces. Mine. The clouded forms of long past history. I'll walk where my own nature would be leading. Line. It vexes me to seek another guide, something like that. Line. Where the gray flocks in ferny glens are feeding, where the wild wind blows on the mountainside. What have those lonely mountains worth revealing? What have those lonely mountains worth revealing? Yeah. What have those lonely mountains worth revealing? Line. More glory and more grief than I can tell. Line. The earth that wakes one human heart to feeling can center both the worlds of heaven and hell. That's it.
Next up, we have Jack Carey.
Let the Light Enter by Frances Ellen Watkins Harper. The dying words of Goethe. Light, more light. The shadows deepen and my life is ebbing low. Throw the windows widely open. Light, more light before I go. Softly, let the balmy sunshine play around my dying bed. Ere the dimly lighted valley I with lonely feet must tread. Light, more light, for death is weaving shadows round my waning sight, and I fain would gaze upon him, through a stream of earthly light. Not for greater gifts of genius, not for thoughts more grandly bright. All the dying poet whispers is a prayer for light, more light. Heeds he not the gathered laurels fading slowly from his sight? All the poet's aspirations center in that prayer for light. Gracious Savior, when life's daydreams melt and vanish from sight, may our dim and longing vision then be blessed with light, more light. Thank you.
Next up, Skylar Pankey.
April Love by Ernest Dowson. We have walked in love's land a little way. We have learnt his lesson a little while. And shall we not part at the end of the day with a sigh, a smile? A little while in the shine of the sun, we were twined together, joined lips, forgot how the shadows fall when the day is done, and when love is not. We have made no vows, there will none be broke. Our love was as free as the wind on the hill. There was no word said, we need wish unspoke. We have wrought no ill. So shall we not part at the end of day, who have loved and lingered a little while, join lips for the last time, go our way with a sigh, a smile? Thank you.
Next up, we have Mason Alonji.
Advice from La Llorona by Deborah A. Miranda. A found poem. Each grief has its unique side. Choose the one that appeals to you. Go gently. Your body needs energy to repair the amputation. Humor phantom pain. Your brain cells are soaked with salt. Connections fail unexpectedly and often. Ask for help. Accept help. Read your grief like the daily newspaper. Headlines may have information you need. Scream. Drop kick the garbage can across the street. Don't feel guilty if you have a good time. Don't act as if you haven't been hit by a Mack truck. Do things a little differently, but don't make a lot of changes. Revel in contradiction. Talk to the person who died. Give her a piece of your mind. Try to touch someone at least once a day. Approach grief with determination. Pretend the finish line doesn't keep receding. Lean into the pain. You can't outrun it. Thank you.
Last up for the 2024 finalists, Akshara Dake.
Amor Mundi by Christina Rossetti. Oh, where are you going with your love locks flowing, blowing along this valley track? The downhill path is easy. Come with me, and it please ye. We shall escape the uphill by never turning back. So they two went together in glowing August weather. The honey-breathing heather lay to their left and right, and dear she was to dote on. Her swift feet seemed to float on the air like soft twin pigeons, too sportive to alight. Oh, what is that in heaven, where gray cloud flakes are seven, where blackest clouds hang riven just at the rainy skirt? Oh, that's a meteor sent us, a message dumb, portentous, an undeniable, solemn signal of help or hurt. Oh, what is that glides quickly, where velvet flowers grow thickly? Their scent comes rich and sickly. A scaled and hooded worm. Oh, what is that? In the hollow, so pale I quake to follow. Oh, that's a thin, dead body which waits the eternal term. Turn again, oh my sweetest, turn again, false and fleetest. This beaten way thou beatest, I fear, is hell's own track. Nay, too steep for hell mounting, nay, too late for cost counting. This downhill path is easy, but there's no turning back. Thank you.
All right, let's have a round of applause for our finalists. All right, that was quite amazing and super impressive. And now I'm just going to ask you all to sit tight for a moment while we finish some calculations, and then we will be able to invite everyone up on stage and announce our winners, okay? So hold on.
I like all the different people. I like sticky everywhere.
The time has come. Are we ready? So I would like to announce, first of all, I'd like to have everyone the finalists come up on stage. And they will be joined by the leaders of our Latin club who will be presenting a laurel wreath to our poet laureate. So would all of you like to come up? Maybe I'll do this. All right, so first of all, congratulations to all of you. What you have done is so impressive and super hard, and I'm proud of all of you. So well done. And I'm going to start with our runners-up in no particular order. Our first runner-up is Eitan Yelvetsky. Come on over. Eitan, congratulations. That's for you. All right, our next runner-up, Brandon Ruiz. Congratulations. Our next runner-up, Therese Kaczynski. Next, our runner-up is Mason Alonji. Congratulations, Mason. Well done. Congratulations. Our last runner-up, Akshara Dake. All right. In third place, Cassandra Herrera. In second place, we have Jack Carey. And it is my pleasure to announce BHS's new Poet Laureate, Skylar Punkay. Well done to everybody. Well done. All right. Up next, I'd like to invite Alex and Chloe, the leaders of our Latin Club, to tell you a little bit about what the laurel wreath represents and to present it to our Poet Laureate.
The laurel crown was the sacred symbol of Apollo, god of the arts.
Since ancient times been used to recognize outstanding achievements in the arts, especially poetry.
Therefore, in accordance with tradition, and on behalf of the Latin Club in all of Burlington High School, we are proud to present the 2024 Poet Laureate with the laurel crown, Skylar Pankey.
All right, thank you, Chloe and Alex. That concludes our 2024 Poetry Out Loud Finals. However, we have a few minutes remaining in the period, so all students just sit and relax, soak in the poetic atmosphere. Thank you for being a great audience, and that's it. Thank you.